Welcome to Door Monster's Tiny Table, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween!
Yeah, it's Halloween.
How's everybody doing?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling good.
Don't say anything so that the people listening to the audio have no idea what's going on.
They'll never be able to guess either.
Yeah. This week, we're talking about Door Monster.
That was going to be my first story was about
videos.
the costumes, though.
Oh, you have a story about the costumes?
I do actually somehow already have a story about the costumes.
All right, go for it.
My mom came upstairs because she was like, oh, I'm so excited to see what Allison's going to wear. And she was like, so I walked into the house. Well, and then I disappointed her by not having a costume. But before that, she was like, I walked into the house and I saw Kyle getting water from the fridge. But like, it wasn't quite Kyle. I couldn't make it be Kyle. And so I'm like staring at him and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I can't make that be Kyle. He's not the right shape. And I was like, And she was like, and then it took me way too long, but it was Matt. And I was like, oh yeah, because the wig. And she was like, yeah. She was like, but he had the mullet and stuff. He just didn't look quite right.
I decided to go as me
Yeah.
for Halloween.
I'm Kyle's father.
Yeah.
From the 90s.
Anyway, we're talking about the Door Monster videos.
Yeah, so
The door.
like the originals, yeah.
Yeah.
The videos that started it all.
With the door.
With the door
Mm-hmm.
and the monster. Yeah, back in 2014, I think, me and Reed, my brother, had this idea for like this Halloween prank decoration thing that we could do, where it was just that, like, we had these tiny little doors inside of our bigger doors, and we came up with like this. We were like, oh, it'd be funny if we just like had some kind of weird claw to hand candy out or whatever. And it had been like, it was like a year after I graduated or something. I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. And I had decided that like starting next year, I was going to try to do like one video a week for a whole year and see what was going to happen. And then independently of that, we had this idea. We didn't know what to do for Halloween. So I decided to try and just like sew this thing together. And then it ended up blowing up the day that we uploaded it. And I was like, well, I don't want to lose that momentum. So I'll just start now. And that's why Door Monster New Year is on October 31st. Because that's our starting point.
So many interesting stories around this video in particular. It's the reason we dated.
That's true.
One of them.
Yeah. This mask is too much.
Actually, I was just noticing that you can see your hair in your eyes through.
Wait, can you?
Yeah, you totally can.
I was really. I'm trying to talk, and it's like going inside my mouth when I try to speak.
The mask or the hair?
Matt, what was your first impression of the Door Monster videos while I managed this?
Well, I saw them after I met you. I didn't come across them organically or anything. So,
Looking good.
Looking good.
Thanks.
I'm happy to have you back.
You were never
hair
there
really is
for.
the thing.
You were never there for any of the Halloweens, right?
Yeah, did we ever have you on set for one of them?
No, I do remember being at one of them. Who knows
were at
which
one of
Door
them?
Monster it was, but I do remember.
Do you remember the color of the Door Monster that when you were
Absolutely
there?
not.
I don't
It must
remember.
have been. It might have been like the last one. you
Yeah,
did.
it must have been a later one at some point. With the very first year, it was just me and Ethan actually the whole time, and we built this stupid little like felt puppet thing, and then just I think just like duct taped it to the back of the door, and it was falling apart the entire time we were doing it. Our arms were incredibly sore by the end of it. It was the first time we had not optimized it at all. But it's also like, it's weird that that's what set us off, because obviously it's not a comedy sketch at all.
No.
Like, it's such a just random one-off like BuzzFeed video almost of just this weird wacky. Like we got posted to a lot of like blogs and stuff. It's the only time I've ever been written about.
Yeah.
I think on other
Really?
websites and on blogs.
Did blow up.
Because I jumped to because all they do is go to the first page of Reddit, grab stuff from there, and then turn it into an
Yeah,
article.
that's fair.
And we actually that video sat on the front page of Reddit for a good few hours on like the day after
Nice.
it went up. But I remember it was also the first time I had this like I just had this feeling. I was like, this feels like something that could turn into a viral video, and on the off chance that it does, I should really try to do it as quickly as possible. So I'm pretty sure like we shot it that night. I slept through the night, and then I started, and then November 1st I spent the whole day editing it, and I think published it on like 6 p.m. that day or something, just to try and get it out as close to Halloween as I possibly could. And then yeah, like I woke up to it having like hundreds of thousands of views or something, which was nuts because at that time my videos I think got like 100 views.
Yeah, that one definitely blew up.
I had like just hit 1,000 subscribers like that year, I think, because my YouTube channel existed for 6 years before that point.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember that because I remember you telling me that you made videos, and I was like, oh, that's sick. And he sent me his YouTube page, and I was like, is that 1,000 subscribers? That's unbelievable. That's so many people. And you were like, yeah, it's not really a big deal though.
Actually, yeah. So when we met, that's a whole story by itself. But when we first met, I told her I did YouTube videos, which is not like a good brag.
No.
I wasn't bragging about it. I was just like, this is all I spend my time doing. So just
To be
so
fair,
you know.
in 2014, YouTubers hadn't gotten like a fully bad rap yet.
Not quite.
It was mostly just like, oh, you're like an indie artist.
It was
like,
building.
Oh, you make YouTube videos for what, like out of passion?
The problem is that at that point in time, they weren't well known enough to brag about it, and now they're too well known. I don't know when the sweet spot was, if ever.
Sure.
But I definitely wasn't in it at the time either. But I remember sending you the channel, and then you were like, I've seen that video.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the first time that had ever happened.
The top of Reddit. It was the top of all of the Reddit posts for like 4 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had seen that video, and you were like, "Oh, I made it," and I was like, "Nah."
I didn't post it to Reddit when it went up. I had never used Reddit. I tried.
You didn't even
going
get
to
the
it.
points for it.
No, it was it was a fan from the Newgrounds era, because I still was like half on Newgrounds at that point and half on YouTube.
Yeah.
The username was For No Reason, so if you're still around, hi and thank you.
Everyone's gonna go look him up on Reddit.
Yeah, you should. He's the reason.
Leave his Reddit page out of this. You don't know what he
Just in case he took a turn in the past
That's
couple
true.
years.
Don't know much else about him other than he was a fan of ours on Newgrounds. And
But whatever he supports and whatever subreddit he joins, we support that too. Rolling the dice on this one. I think he's a good guy.
There's very little payoff to that gamble compared to the risk.
Fair.
But yeah, he posted it, and I didn't think anything was going to come of it. I kind of remember it, like, I think it reached like about 100 views in that night. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, yeah, I woke up the next morning, and that has never happened since then. I don't think of that, like, going to sleep and waking up and being like, oh my God, the video went viral. Like, we've never had anything go viral until Phasmophobia. That's the second time that it happened.
Big gap.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how that thing functioned. You can't see anything. So it's just like an eyeball that one person just like moves around with their hand, but only one, because you're not long enough to do both.
Yeah.
So you have one eyeball that you move around, which is kind of hard because it's just like a styrofoam ball. So you're just like hoping you're like getting it right. And then one hand that someone else has to do. So it's two people just kind of staring at each other all night while they puppet this giant thing.
It's a two-person
job. And then candy
job
in the middle, so that the hand person has to, they have one hand in the thing. And then they have to grab the candy, bring the hand back in, give themselves the candy, and then bring the candy back out.
The layering is like puppet hand, like puppet sleeve entrance, then bowl of candy, then door, and then you have to like reach all the way out, and then kind of like there's multiple planes of activity going on just with the hand, and then you're relying on eyeball guy to show you where you're moving the hand because you can't see out the door.
Right.
So it's a whole coordinated effort that also just wears your arms out. So we usually,
exhausting.
By year 2, we had started getting 4 or 5 people to rotate in and out.
I like doing the hand. I was excited to do the hand, but then I realized very quickly it only had 4 fingers, so you couldn't flip any of the kids off. And I was like,
oh, that's calculated.
I was like, damn, yeah, Kyle obviously knew because I was 100% going to do that. I still tried.
You can still kind of do it. The
cartoon,
I mean, it's even more of a middle finger if you only have 3 of them.
Yeah,
dead
true.
center.
It was 4.
Literally the middle.
Well, 4 including the thumb. But like cartoon middle finger is pretty easy. The Simpsons can do it. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
That's true.
That's a good point, I guess. The Simpsons can still do it, yeah. You also get to kind of just like beat kids around because they're awful. They start trying to like rip the hand off or like beat the eye in.
No,
so
that
you just
first year-
you just like have your hand out and you just like grab their head and they're like, "Shut up, kid." You're
I
not
think
allowed to
half
say
the reason
anything,
that
but-
first video did well is because all the kids were just little punks about it and were just like
They truly were.
slapping the puppet, and
So mean.
It was really easy just to like highlight how shitty the teenagers were being, and I think
Yeah.
that probably drove a lot of the engagement and people sharing it around.
Totally.
How many of those did you do?
6. Yeah, we did.
lot.
It became a yearly tradition for 6 years, and we had 3 different puppet variations, 2 years per variation. And we tried different gimmicks like every year, because so the first one we had people were just being little shits regardless, and so the second year I obviously I tried to antagonize them, so we added the water spray bottle for a little while. Eventually I added in like the articulated, like the blink. You could like make the eye blink by like using a certain control. And yeah, I think we eventually just settled on that one with sort of like the more like movable, expressive puppet face without any of the weapon attachments or anything. I think we attached like a speaker and tried to do sounds at one point.
Yeah.
So it was a new thing every time. None of them ever like quite reached the highs that first one did view-wise or anything.
Oh, impossible.
But it was like, it became like our tradition, and the people the really fun part was the people in the neighborhood got to be really familiar with it. So I know there are like kids that grew up in that neighborhood that like
fond
remember
memories.
that. Yeah.
And like 6 years, if you're a child, that's like the entirety of your childhood.
Yeah.
And that's
Door
pretty
Monster
cool.
House.
Like I'm kind of proud. That's probably one of the things I'm more proud of just from that era, even more than just like having like internet influence or something. Was just that like I made this integral part of a holiday for like a group of people in my neighborhood, probably.
Because when you're that young, like that's just real. Like there's a monster in that house, and you'll remember it forever.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
And I know the year that we stopped, we got so many people that were just like, "There's no door monster." And we were like,
because we put a
this
sign
is too hard
on the last one saying it was the last one, so people didn't expect it the
that was
next year.
And there were a lot of kids who came up and were like, "I grew up with door monster. Like this is so sad." Like,
Right, with like the creature, the door monster, not
Yes.
even like the YouTube channel. Like,
no,
most of
not
them
the
didn't
YouTube
watch
channel
it.
at all.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Just the creature.
12-year-old adult, like I remember Door Monster, my first Halloween.
Actually, this is the first year I'm not doing anything for Halloween since my entire life that I can think
That's
of.
too bad.
Yeah, same.
Actually,
we
Halloween-
have plans to watch some horror movies with Thomas and Kate.
Halloween is how I knew I was the main character, because in middle school, I liked this boy, and my mom does big Halloween parties every single year. And so she threw a Halloween party for me and like my whole middle school class. And I liked this boy, and she did this game. It was super fun. It was all outside back when Halloween was cold because global warming hadn't hit like a truck. And she even rented like a dance floor out. And so one of the games was like, there were these little, like the whole dance floor, like you would dance and the music would stop. But then when it stopped, you had to like jump on a square or whatever. But each round you take out a square. And anyone who doesn't land on it gets out of the game. So by the end of it, you're like hugging someone trying to like stand on the
Just
square.
advanced musical chairs.
Yeah. And I don't know how this happened, because I ended up with my crush during the dance, like on the same one. I wasn't the only person who had a crush on this boy. I think my mom planned it. I think she was like kicking out girls and partnering people up. And like we also did the apple thing where you like have the apple and you transfer it to someone.
Oh yeah.
And I swear she picked out the
Your
line.
mom just wingman you the whole
I think
night.
so.
That
I
sounds
think
like
so.
something she'd do.
And all my other friends, and then the people I didn't like, she just threw at the wayside because my mom's the best.
That's pretty great.
But yeah, ever since then we've always done like a Halloween party, and then I stopped for Door Monster, and then we did a Halloween party last year where we switched overalls, and then we've got this year where we have nothing planned, and I didn't even have a costume. This is the first time in my life where people were like, put on makeup and a costume, and I'm like,
You just didn't
I have
have anything
nothing.
ready to go. Yeah,
The first year
I've really been like getting my money out of the Spider-Man costume for the past few years.
Good, it was expensive.
But the $200 custom fit printed morph suit.
It still looks very wonderful on you. So
Yeah, no, it's held up pretty good. The colors have stayed intact, which I'm impressed by.
exactly, totally. But yeah, this is my first non-Halloween party. Halloween.
That's too bad. Did y'all go trick-or-treating as children?
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, like a lot.
This is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. And do you remember it being just kids everywhere, just seas
Yes.
of children?
Yes, it really feels
dead.
different now.
I was
So
thinking
dead.
like it's just the modern climate is Halloween is the worst holiday for the modern climate because everyone is terrified of their neighbors, terrified to go outside. It's just really
What, handing out free things?
handing out free things. Everyone's
No.
suspicious of
How
it.
could you?
Yeah.
Facebook has told us all that there's poison in all.
No,
of the
we've really-
candy.
Well,
We
candy's okay. So one, inflation. Candy's expensive as hell now. Now you're just
Also
supposed to
true.
give it out for free.
Right, I'm
Not
supposed to
only
buy
that,
something and just give it away.
you can't
why?
even
Because I
take it
like
home.
my neighbors. No.
What if your Milky Way is full of socialism or razor blades?
Also, they taste gross. Like I don't know. I mean, maybe
right,
they
calm
don't
down.
to kids, but
Calm
like
down.
what?
Candy still tastes good.
No, it
they,
doesn't. It never
they
did.
don't though. Like chocolates, like Hershey's chocolates and stuff, taste so bad. Like I
Nah,
don't know if
they're
they
still
always
good.
did and I didn't notice,
It's still good.
or if they just don't.
The
now.
best part, the only part about Halloween that's still any good is I can buy a bag of candy and just like eat it. That's
You
the
really
only.
still genuinely like all of them? None of them taste different to you?
Well, I didn't like a lot of them growing up in the first place. Like I never liked chocolate.
But all the ones you did like, you don't feel like they taste any different? Like they haven't changed to your taste buds at all?
I hope not.
Because I feel like I feel like they've changed. I've tried, like, for the last couple of years, I've really had trouble like enjoying them. Because I used to do that. I used to, like, when we were doing Door Monster, I would just eat. That's part of it. You get to eat the candy as you go.
Did y'all's mom check your candy?
No.
Oh yeah, I went through the razor blade scare years. So yeah,
That was every year, every single year. There was not a single year where our candy was not checked.
yeah.
And I guess really the idea was that it was poisoned, right?
It was. There were just weird like news articles that came out occasionally that was like. That were like, are there razor blades in your kid's candy? I don't know.
I heard
No, it
that
wasn't razor blades.
it's anecdotal, but I heard that it was some father killed his own son by poisoning his candy
what
and then
it
like
was?
blaming it on someone else. And then all of the
Oh.
news
always just
organizations
one
ran
guy.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then news was like, ooh.
I do remember there being like they're putting like weed in your kid's candy or something, and everybody that actually used weed at the time was like, I'm not just gonna give away my weed. Are
that's
you
the
out of your
weird-
mind?
It's a weird thing about like there's some phenomenon that I don't know how to put words to it, but it's like there's people who just conceive of something that could be true, and then they just make the next jump to like, well, that's happening. So like all the TikToks about like this is how people get trafficked. You
Oh
know,
my God, yeah.
Like they see weed gummies and they're like, oh, that looks like gummies for kids. Kids could eat that. Kids are eating that. Like they just convince themselves within 3 seconds something that they imagine is happening, and it happens all the time. People
Yeah.
do it constantly. I don't know what the word for that is. Oops.
I don't know, but there does need to be a word for it. I actually feel like we were actually just having a conversation about conspiracy theories, Kyle and I, because we were talking about what were we talking about in the, in the kitchen with Kate?
Podcast. Oh, today.
No,
we talking?
yesterday. We were talking with Kate
Oh, okay.
about conspiracy theories. Which one was it? Do you remember that it was like this? Oh, we were talking about whether or not Hollywood hires
Oh.
people to like stand in for famous celebrities if they're like sick or
Yeah, like
busy
replacing
or
actors
whatever.
or musicians or something.
Yeah,
oh,
so,
like not in movies, but in public.
Like
in real life.
yeah.
Yeah, like on stage and stuff. And we all kind of were like, yeah, that probably definitely happens. And Kyle said the magic words, which is what I say all the time, which is why I'm probably more of a conspiracy theorist than I should be. But he said, if it's something, do you remember?
I just said like, well, I can picture like if I were in that situation, I were playing life like a game, I would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that probably means somebody else
100%.
has done it or is doing it because
Well, and that's
it
what's-
just makes sense that this is like this person is now $1 million asset. If they're supposed to perform and they're sick and I'm left with minimal options, yeah, I'm gonna have body doubles standing in ready to
back
go
up.
and lip sync.
But here's the problem though, right? Because like there's the worst thing you would do, right? And there's the worst thing I would do. And then there's the worst thing anyone would do. So if conspiracy theories exist based on how willing we would be
Yeah.
to do the thing, everything's on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything's on the table. Because like,
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
yeah. Well, like, I mean, if I could financially exploit everyone all the time, like an evil twirly mustache villain, I would. So if I would, someone else is definitely doing it,
have to.
right?
Right. Well, I was like, just you already understood this, but like for my own sake, mustache twirling really just comes down to detachment. That's all that it takes. You just
Yeah.
have to not be like emotionally invested in whatever you're doing to like feel bad for harming someone. As long as that detail is gone, it's all up in the air.
Yeah, you could be like the assistant to the person who's destroying the rainforest, and you're like, well, I'm not the guy.
right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what the Halloween candy thing reminds me of.
I'm
which
still-
is like, you know, maybe someone would poison Halloween. Actually,
yeah.
that doesn't even feel that realistic. There's too
Well,
many
no, I think
reasons
that's
it
why it's
wouldn't
ridiculous.
happen. No one benefits
Right, that's
from it.
exactly that is you've highlighted the issue by talking about its opposite. No one would poison Halloween candy. What
What's
would
the-
be the point of doing
What's the
that?
fun? No one even knows you do it. So like you don't even get like villain credit. No one's
Yeah.
gonna know who did it. And then you don't get money from it. And you might have to give up your drugs.
Right.
There's truly no
there
benefit.
truly is no evidence of that happening. I
Right.
don't think either, right? Like there just wasn't any actual cases of that ever happening aside from,
From what
it's
I
like you
understand,
said.
yeah.
It's like like somebody poisoned his kid or something, and then it turns into
Just
a news
ran with
story.
it.
Well, and evil people don't give away things for free. Even
also
the guy
think
who did it just poisoned
That's
his
true.
own son.
That's
He
just
didn't
bad
give away
capitalism.
poison for free.
I also think that like serial killer. I think the personal one-on-one connection is important for killers. Like poisoning
yeah.
candy,
Oh,
then
yeah.
like not seeing them die. That's not what they want.
Right. No, that's not fun at all.
That's not fun at all.
I agree. Actually, I hate the TikTok like trafficking things. One, because I'm easily spooked and extremely gullible. But two, because I can't do anything anymore. There was one where like someone found a used tissue on her windshield. And she was like, hey, this to like beware because I almost got out to take it off my car. But if I had, who knows what would have happened.
That does sound like somebody just having like a really like active imagination
Yeah.
for 2 seconds and then taking their phone out and saying that's what's going
This
on.
is a thing that's occurring.
Yeah.
It's also very curious how all these people, when they say that they've touched some drug that made them feel some kind of way, you know, that was left on their door handle or something,
Oh,
they
yeah.
always describe a panic attack. You know, it's like I got flush and panicky and my heart
What is the
started
claim?
beating.
That they, like,
they're
absorbed
being,
it through
yeah,
their
they're like
skin?
absorbing some poison to be trafficked by, and then they describe like the symptoms of a panic attack. I'm like, I think you're just giving yourself a panic attack.
That's pretty crazy. I don't know. Maybe they're also like in really shady parking lots. I've never felt in danger in a Target parking lot. Y'all seen Target parking lots? They're
Yeah.
not like in terms of parking lot relativity. I've never felt endangered in a Target parking lot, but that is like the go-to TikTok trafficking place because that's where the women are.
But it's also something that doesn't exist. This conversation feels like it's getting serious, but it's also like it's just there's so many there's so many fears that people have, like the guy lurking in the shadows to come steal you, that just like doesn't happen and has never happened. Like we know how
Yeah.
crimes happen. People are stolen by and killed by people they know like 99% of the time. Like the boogeyman you don't know it's just not going to happen.
can
But
tell
we
you
still
why, though.
collectively are all terrified.
I can
of it.
tell you why. It's not our generation didn't do it. It was the before like mainstream media, but like early TV, radio, 80s, all of our parents, right? All of our parents had like this big serial killer kidnapping scare. That's what everyone was afraid of because you couldn't track anybody and it was really easy. You just like take people. Why not? It was the 80s. Like
Yeah.
it probably happened all the time.
The stranger danger
Totally.
teachings
Yeah.
and stuff. Like, yeah, definitely was our parents to us.
It
of,
was
like,
mandatory.
Oh, before you get pedantic in the comments, I know it does happen and has happened.
It's never
Like,
happened.
okay-
They're making it up.
you're
Don't
right.
listen
I'm
to
just
the
saying.
comments.
1%.
Well, but I think your point is like statistically, it's like uncommon enough that it's not something
it's
that
not
should
something
be
to
like.
worry about.
Yeah, it's not like a rational fear.
Yeah.
But like our generation, our parents' generation, I think were the ones that were just left alone to fend for themselves.
True.
So yeah, I think the rubber band
Well-
situation is that they like really got overprotective and scared the shit out of all of us.
This is not a unique story to me, but I was not allowed to have my car until the first thing I was trained in is getting in and locking it. Which does not mean much until you think about the psychological implications of having a parent who's like, when you get in the car, you lock it immediately
Yeah.
and you drive away. No wait time. And you're like, why? Oh, it's the impending.
It's the impending doom that's all around you at all times.
right.
I also wonder, before I lose this thought, I also wonder if it's like parents' generation, that generation of people grew up with like newscasters that were actually valued integrity and truth. And so they
Oh,
grew
sure.
up
Oh, yeah.
knowing that the news was truth. And
right.
Yeah.
then they saw within their lifetimes the complete switch of this is now entertainment and it's
Right.
all lies.
That's a good point.
But their
now
brains,
we're in the Anchorman era where we look at these people
Yeah.
and we're like, we know that that's just some douchebag reading the script or whatever.
but they're
yeah.
but they're grandfathered into trusting those people, so they still
Yeah.
trust them to this day, even
That
though
makes
they're
sense.
wild
That
liars.
explains, like, you know, the Fox News devotees that all
Yeah.
of our grandparents turned into and stuff like that.
I think it
'cause-
also explains the Halloween candy. It just
Yeah,
had to
no,
happen the
it's-
one time, and then they heard it on the news, and it was like, oh my God, did that really happen? Like a kid was poisoned or whatever?
Right.
Ever since I was a baby, my candy has been checked. My
Yeah.
mom is also.
How do you
the-
check it for poison?
Anything that
Yeah, I
was
don't know what
slightly
they were
opened.
doing. Yeah,
it's
you're right.
open a little bit.
And-
Anything that was slightly opened or slightly unraveled, anything that looked off colored or out
Right.
of date or even sometimes misshapen. Who knows what they did to
It's
that?
weird. I still do that. Like, I don't know how it happened to me, but if I buy something at the store and I notice that it's open later, like after I bought it, I'm like, well, shit, I can't eat this now. Someone clearly injected it with cyanide. They walked into the gas station and were like, the next person that buys this pack of gum is dead.
You know what really kind
Didn't
of
this
reversed
happen
that
recently?
for me is actually playing Red Dead Redemption now. If I go into grocery stores and I like pick up like a dented can, I'm like, well, good enough for the Cowboys, is good enough for me.
Enough for me.
I've just completely gone backwards on that stuff.
No, the real life version of this actually happened where like you're worried you take something home and it's ruined or whatever.
Yeah.
But the real life version isn't drugs or cyanide or poison or whatever. It's 16-year-olds walking in and licking the top of ice creams and then putting the lid back on.
Oh, yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's what actually happens, right? Like you're gonna be okay. I guess it was the COVID years, so but
Yeah.
that's still not how you get
But
COVID.
even that's
so.
not a big
But that
if-
was still just
No,
like
I know.
one
That I would
person.
still eat that ice cream, especially if they like discounted it
But
or something.
wasn't that
so.
also still just like one person and then the
Well, he started
copycats
a
maybe
trend,
that they
but-
but like how many people were actually doing
5
that?
probably,
Like not that
like
many
5
probably,
people
right?
most likely.
Yeah, that's every week. There's a news story about like people are Gen Z is saying they're canceling llamas or whatever, and it's like a single tweet.
I think this is the real
Canceling llamas.
this is the real conspiracy theory by which I still always mean just algorithmic human attention spans spiraling in on each other, because I think that's more plausible than like actual malicious conspiracy.
Yeah.
But fear is profitable and always has been, and I think that has just continued to build. And so
That's why Halloween is so popular.
it's why but it's also weirdly I think why it's probably kind of dying out, because it really we
right.
walked
Too
around
far.
the neighborhood and we're like, I swear there used to be like more Halloween
My love
decorations.
of Halloween
Yeah.
is
Like,
killed.
yeah.
Just buried.
They're just not there anymore.
There's
like
nothing.
like in my memory, when I was a kid, every single house on my street was decked out for Halloween.
Yeah, you were a loser if you didn't do it.
And it's
and you would
it's
decorate your houses together as like as a neighborhood, you know?
kind of
No, we grew up in like North Austin.
Oh.
well, but
We
but
didn't
it
do
was
that.
Depending on the neighborhood.
We didn't do
no,
that.
sorry, yeah. For us, it was a competition. It wasn't sure.
Right,
It wasn't a
exactly.
group
It
activity.
wasn't right.
But you still all did it, and I think it partially because like that era of like parents really wanted to like give that holiday to their children, I guess, in a way that is not present anymore. And I don't know if it's because of I think it's just a lot of things. I think first off, Halloween decorations are expensive. We can't afford them. Like we're not going to go spend the little bit of money we have on plastic Party City decorations to stick out in our yard.
That's a good point.
Here in Texas, it's like too hot. Yeah, like you don't trust your neighbors. It's you don't like. Everybody's afraid of going outside, about interacting with people. It's just all kind of crumbled, and it's weird. It's not a change I was expecting.
It heavily relied on community and like closeness and friendship and family and that kind of stuff, like to make it good. And that shit's been dead for like a long time. Because now your neighbor like now you know everyone in your neighborhood has like different political people. Like that's the scary thing, is like the political signs in everyone's yard now, and that's
it's really just
like how do you don't want to go to that house? You hate that person already because you were told to hate that person. Like they have a this sign, they have a this sign. Enemies. You can't let your kids go to their house. Who knows what's going to happen when you knock on that person's door?
This is a
A
fun
pedophile's
podcast.
going to answer the door.
But yeah, no,
Halloween's ruined.
The fear worked, unfortunately.
Yeah, it
It's
did.
really, like everyone's
Poor
afraid of
everyone.
everybody because they're afraid of you.
How ironic is it that we're too afraid to do Halloween?
Oh, yeah, right. It's
The real fear all along.
the
Politics.
poetic probably or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we're
Super
doing
sexy.
Halloween here right now in this podcast
That's right.
studio.
That's right. We brought candy.
What do you remember from Halloween? Like what was the standout memory to you from when you did trick or treating as a kid, and that was like the big event? Because it was a build up for me. Like the whole month was like that's what
It was
you waited
massive.
for.
I mean, obviously the Disney Channel, like
Yeah.
spooky shows and
Oh,
movies
yeah.
marathon up to Halloween was big for me.
All 5 Halloween towns.
I have a specific memory of like my dad was taking me to my friend Sam's house to trick or treat, and we were driving down his street, and Sam stepped out into the road in front of his car, like doing a little dance because he was being a silly guy that was messing with people on Halloween, but he didn't know it was my dad, and my dad got really mad at Sam. But also in that memory, there are hundreds of kids lining the streets.
Yeah.
I
it was
remember
just like
there being
We
crowds.
had like dedicated pickup truck drivers that would fill their trucks with hay and offer to just take kids around the neighborhood.
Huh.
Like, because it was a lot of walking. People
Yeah.
had a lot of kids. This is kind of a taxing holiday on parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's one guy who had like a little truck, and he would be like, everyone can just. So like 7 kids would just hop on the back of the truck and just go around in circles, and then he'd drop them off it's the neighborhood, so it's like 8 roads. Like it's not
Yeah.
not anything crazy.
I feel like costume day at school was a big deal. I have vague memories
Yeah.
of that being real fun.
I wonder if they do that anymore. If there's any kind of version of that, or if that's like too much of a security threat now.
Yeah, it's fair.
Probably.
Yeah.
I went to a Christian school, so that was off the table like immediately.
That makes sense.
We
I
once-
went to a public elementary school and stuff, and they definitely had like costume Halloween. You got to wear costumes to school, and that was the coolest
We
thing.
once had a dance that was like coming up at like Halloween for our middle school, and we had voted. Everyone had like unanimously voted for a masquerade dance.
Oh, cool.
They were like, absolutely not. They said yes first, and then they took it back. And we
Wow.
were like, what is the threat? And they were like, well, you never know who's going to walk in a mask. And I'm like, what? Just don't let weird adults in. Like, I don't know. Like,
right? Yeah.
check our faces at the door or
if
something.
they're over 3 feet, don't ask them to lift the mask for a second or something.
No, they didn't even want to. They didn't even want to bother. We didn't get our dress up days because like, what if the girls wore something short or tight?
That makes sense. That's
what
the
if
Christian
the
school
boys
thing.
wore something short or tight? You know, whatever. Like, it was
I might be
awful.
making this up. I feel like I have a vague memory of like they got lax on like the cleavage and skirt standards on
Really?
Halloween.
Really?
So like that was really big for the girlies because they could slut it up just a tiny bit on
they should.
Halloween. No, it's
As
Halloween.
they should. As they should. I stand by this.
My high school shut it down because somebody showed up in a full, like, real graphically detailed Jesus costume, complete with cross and everything
Blood.
on Halloween.
Why is that bad?
Because it was a public school, I guess, and so it was like too much in the way of religion. I don't know.
Well, that's fucked up. You know, there are Satanists out there. I bet someone went as a devil.
Yeah,
How
but
rude.
schools just operate under like trying not to get letters from parents.
That's
So
pretty
it's like
much
this
it,
looks
yeah.
like a letter from parents. Get it out of here.
And that was in like 2012, so I bet they don't do costumes in schools anymore.
I was an exceptionally easily spooked child. Like very
yeah?
easily.
Oh,
Like
same.
everything worked on me. So like if I had seen the door monster, I probably wouldn't have gone up. Like that's
Yeah.
how spooked I was.
I probably actually really would have been the same way.
Yeah. So in middle school, I braved up and I was like gonna show my friends that I was like sick and rad and I could do it. So now looking back, I now realize the setup was like a long kind of tent from the door back into like the yard, so it's just like a long little tenty thing with like some flashy glowy purple and green lights and some like mildly spooky things and really loud music. And I was absolutely terrified, like so horrified, and I didn't want to go. My friend was like, I love scary things, it's gonna be great. And there was like a scary woman at the end with the candy. And so I went, and so I'm like 12, like way too old to have reacted this way, but I was so spooked. It was my first like haunted house ever. So I actually just screamed the whole way, like bloody murder. Every step was just a constant like, like the entire time on the way down. And the woman who's dressed like, I don't know, a zombie, something horrifying, is like, oh my God, it's okay. She was like, she held me. The strange woman was like, no, baby, it's
sorry.
okay. Because I screamed nonstop, just constant screaming. My friend was like, you need to shut the hell up. My also 12-year-old friend. And I was just like almost in tears by the end of it. And she gave me so much candy, sent me on my way home, told my mom, because my mom wasn't going to let me walk around alone at 12.
That's actually really surprising. I figured you were
know.
probably like the brave horror lover one.
Nearly in tears from a tent.
Because I was definitely not into scary stuff at all. I didn't like that part of Halloween, but I loved the day of the year I got to dress up as Spider-Man because I still did that back then, and then go out and get handed candy by everybody in the neighborhood. One of my greatest triumphs was one year when I was a little bit older. I had like this alien costume with one of those like rubber masks that you just breathe cancerous fumes off of while you have it on.
Love those.
And then the goggle eyes that I could actually, I just couldn't see. I got this costume and I tried it on and I was like, well, this is going to be a challenge. But what ended up happening is I was able to get more candy than everybody else because anytime we came up with the spooky houses, I was immune because I couldn't see anything that was happening. So I was able to walk up to the door, and if there was some like spooky scarecrow man on the porch or something, I just couldn't tell because also it like encases your whole head, so like the sounds are all weird and echoey. I could just only see the little pinpoint blurry image of like that
Brilliant
looks like a
idea.
front door, and then hold my
safe.
basket out.
That's so funny. I would have loved to see you because I know from the outside you're just a kid like bumbling around with a really large head, like
I just
hitting
looked
other
like
kids.
E.T., just some creature crammed inside this costume.
No, I was so easily scared. My brother once had a birthday. His birthday's in August. He had a birthday and a sleepover with all his friends that I was not invited to. And at like midnight, I knew they were gonna put on Alien
Oh, okay.
and The Exorcist. right?
I still haven't seen one of those movies.
So I knew they were going to watch it, but I wasn't allowed to watch it. I was upstairs in bed and I cried. I cried because I knew they were
because you
scary
knew somebody
movies.
else was watching it.
Yes. And Thomas went upstairs because I was inconsolable and my parents were like, what is going on? And my brother's like, Allison, what's wrong? And I was like, The Exorcism. I have so many scary, vivid images in my head. And he's like, you have not seen it. And I was like, it's almost worse.
At that point, it was worse. You probably should have just watched it because it sounds like whatever you were imagining was
he
way
was like,
worse.
Allison, I've seen it. It's the least scary movie I can think of. Nothing scary happens in it. I'm like, what about the demons? He's like, it's not that movie. It doesn't happen in that movie. And I was like, what about all the scary visuals I think I know are going to happen? And he's like, there's something wrong with you, but like that didn't happen. That's how easily spooked I was. He was watching a movie I wasn't watching.
Just knowing that a horror movie was playing somewhere in the house.
And I pictured the horror movie and scared myself. It was a very terrified child.
That's pretty great.
No, it's not.
That's hilarious.
No. Horrible. What does this mean about me?
Okay, what was everybody's weirdest costume year? Like, what was the strangest costume that you had? Just looking back, because I think mine was one year. I just found I think what I dressed up as was the robot from Lost in Space, the old 60s sci-fi television series that had been off the air for decades by the time I got the costume.
What?
Just because I thought the robot costume looked fun. I had no idea what it was. I remember my parents being like, are you sure that's what you want? That's
like you bought it off the rack?
Yeah, like I picked that one. We went to Party City with the big costume wall.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like the robot. And they were like, that's from like, we were too young to have watched that show when it was on TV. I was like, no, I want the robot. I remember wearing that to like church, to like Sunday school on our Halloween day.
I always had an astounding sense of confidence. So Halloween was the one year to like be slutty. And so I just did it every year. So there was, I went as Princess Jasmine back when like I could, before my mom was like, absolutely not. And then I went as every princess, at least, except for like the dumb ones like Cinderella, like who would? But I went as, well, I had really long like butt length hair, black hair. So I was Snow White and I was Pocahontas and I was Jasmine till I was like old enough to not be a Disney princess. And then I definitively remember slutty Robin Hood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just that. It was just that, like slutty candy corn, whatever I
I
could.
think that you and I both had a minute to process, like, what even is that?
Yeah, green, but like a dress.
But less.
Yeah, like not very much.
Green, but not much
so
of it.
I did that every year because I could, because like I wanted to. It was like I was like a middle schooler and a high schooler. Like, what was I gonna do? Look lame? No, hot as hell every year. So nothing interesting. I can't remember a single one. I don't recall which version of slutty blank I was that was most interesting.
I remember my favorite thing. I revealing a little bit too much about myself probably. When I was a kid, my imagination became much more tactile. Like I just kind of like, I did not try to hide it much.
Wait, I didn't get to hear Matt's answer.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. What was your answer to the question?
It's not good. So you probably shouldn't have stopped that story for it. But I only remember one costume I did, which is I made, like the ones that you buy that looks like, they're like inflatable. It looks like you're getting a piggyback from something else.
Yeah.
I made one of those out of like a hoodie and, my mom helped.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But you made like a homemade.
Yeah, like a homemade. I was
like,
super fucking proud
gag
of it.
costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was getting a piggyback from, I forgot what mask. I probably just had like a skull mask that I put in the hoodie's head and filled it with fuzz.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of that costume.
That's actually pretty great.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
That is super cool. I never did anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever made a costume either.
Speaking of making costumes, like I was walking through Party City trying to get some costume stuff and just like seeing just the capitalism on the walls, like buy this stuff. And then thinking back to like the photos you see on Reddit of like Halloween 1922.
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
kids
yeah.
are literally just putting like flour sacks and pumpkins, like actual rotting pumpkins on their heads.
Yeah.
They're just like picking stuff up off the farm and just stapling it to
Yeah.
themselves. And it's like, we need to get back to that. We just
Yeah, I
like,
love that.
pick stuff up out of the street, put it on ourselves and call it a Halloween costume. I don't need to be
I
a
think
that's
Star
awesome.
Lord.
Actually, we used to go trick or treating with my family friends at the time, I don't think either of them have ever appeared in a Door Monster video, so they're irrelevant to anybody who's listening.
Don't exist.
Actually, no, what? Sorry, one of them is in I think the community comments after the second Door Monster video.
Oh, wow.
Christian, I think, is in that one.
I think he is.
He and his brother were the people we did Halloween with every single year. And their dad was like an obsessive Lord of the Rings fan and costume designer. So
Whoa.
they would always show up with these just ridiculously elaborate handmade Lord of the Rings costumes. Like I think Jay went as a ring wraith a couple years and it just looked like the movie character, but like scaled down because he was still a child. And they had like the authentic like prop swords that their dad had bought.
This is so... Sorry, I was going to say so off topic, but those are two of my favorite people in the entire world. Neither of them have ever been like nice to me or anything, but Christian and Jay are some of my favorite people ever. Like Christian, like every time, I don't know, I have these like distinct, they're cartoon characters, like truly cartoon characters. Christian drank like 25 sodas, like single like canned sodas, like every single time I've ever seen him at the house.
Whoa.
And like refuses to drink water or something.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And then has like a flat, deep, monotone voice. Those two things make him a cartoon character in my mind. And then I've only met Jay a few times. Oh, and then Christian once yelled at me because I said that the little Mexican dessert donut-y looking things that look like seashells,
Oh yeah.
I said that they didn't taste good. And I've never seen someone so mad.
Yeah, no,
he was
and
mad
Jay
for
were just
like
laid
3
into
hours.
you for the rest of that dinner.
I loved every second of it. And then Jay's just the kind of person who's like, you're all sitting there eating, minding your own business, and Jay's like, Benedict Cumberbatch is the best actor of the year 2020, and I won't hear anything else. And it's like no one was talking about it. And so then the whole conversation starts where he's just going to talk about that for like 3 hours, and you're like, I didn't think about it like that. I kind of agree with you now. He's very convincing, but you're just like eating tacos, and he's like, anyway.
Yeah.
I think that
They're very
random
interesting
obscure
family.
movie is the best thing that's ever been created since the 1940s, and you're like, and then Christian takes the bait every time. That's the fun part.
Yeah,
Christian's
that's
like,
true.
no, and then they're fighting, and you're just enjoying it.
You
It's
really
good
just
time.
watch them. You don't have
They're
a
the best.
conversation. You just
I
show
miss
up
them
and observe.
so much. They're so good. True cartoon people.
They were our Halloween buddies for years. That was like we would always go. One of us would go to the other one's house and we'd go trick or treating together.
They're just so great.
And yeah, they were fun to go with.
They moved to.
I was gonna say earlier, the best part of Halloween for me was actually always post-Halloween discount costumes because I was, I think, a very strange child and would dress up in costumes just randomly, just because I felt like it. I had a whole bin full of them, and I would just throw something on and be running around the house dressed as Batman that day. Because my mom got it for $10 at the Walmart discount aisle or something.
Did your parents cap how much candy you could eat?
No, we definitely had a limited
do that to
amount.
you?
No.
Yeah, not me either. No, not me. I was allowed to eat all of it.
Yeah, no, we had a limited number. We had like we could eat like a bigger amount on Halloween, but then it was definitely like limited to like a few pieces per.
What?
Per
A few
serving.
pieces?
Yeah, no, it was.
What the hell?
We also only had 30 minutes of like screen time a day allocated, which is
Ooh.
probably why I spent the rest of the day dressing up like superheroes.
Did y'all have like candy economics? Like someone didn't like dots, but then someone did like dots, so you like wagered like I love
Oh,
dots.
yeah.
Thomas
Oh, yeah,
liked
there's a barter
chocolate, but
system.
I
I
didn't
mean, we
like
did
chocolate.
basic trades, but you talked about like a
No.
whole like
No.
exchange rate that you guys came
Yeah,
up with.
I liked dots so much more than like Thomas, and Thomas was older than me. But then I didn't like chocolate, so it was like my 3 chocolates for his 1 dots. Crazy. I was getting totally ripped off. I could have had a way better deal. He didn't even like dots. Nobody likes dots except
But
me.
much like real life, you were willing to do it, so supply and
was.
demand
Supply and
dictate
demand.
that that's the price.
I was. I think my dad was pretty sneaky about it too. He would eat our candy.
Yeah, that's the dad tax. Every dad can eat the candy.
But like over the course of like the next few months, we would like save it in our own bags, and I'd come back and I'd be like, "There's less candy."
Oh,
He
what
was
did you-
eating it.
What did you? I had a pillow sack. What did y'all's candy sack look
I always
like?
had the plastic pumpkin. Usually, that was our go-to.
Yeah, I had something cool as shit every time. It was
Did you?
new. My mom loved Halloween, so like
Yeah.
we were spoiled. I had something awesome, glittery and purple every year.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that makes sense.
The
Yeah.
pillow. I'm remembering so many memories flooding back because we had. I'm call them pillow sack. What am I trying to say?
Like a pillowcase?
Pillowcase.
Yeah.
That makes sense because
Pillowcases.
it's bigger.
Yeah, and the more we would
Smart.
fill it with candy, it just became a weapon.
Oh
Me and
yeah.
my friends just couldn't. We're just all jacked up on sugar, just smacking each other in the head with a pillowcase full of candy.
That makes sense.
We weren't allowed to eat anything till we got home. You were like eating it in the street.
Our parents weren't with us.
Oh, that could have never happened with me.
Yeah, no, I didn't have that experience either. We
Our
definitely
parents were
being-
always.
That's
with
why
me.
Halloween rocked, because you
Followed.
just go out with your hooligan friends and like trick or treat a little bit, and then just go trespass.
That's why. Yeah, high school was better.
I did not have debaucherous Halloweens. I may
Yeah.
have been. I liked all of mine, honestly. I really didn't have a problem with how they went. It's really just my only Halloween disappointment comes from the fact that it just doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Yeah, it's a
I just feel
bummer.
bad.
It
for-
was a good time. I had the best Halloweens too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think my low point Halloweens were like in between stopping trick or treating and doing the door monster, because there was like 2 or 3 years in there where I didn't do anything and I wasn't going to parties, and like I just my parents just handed out candy and I was around, and that's basically it. There was one year I got a full like Jack Skellington costume and tried to be all showy, handing candy out and stuff, and that was sort of like the proto like door monster inspiration, I guess.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much it. There was definitely like there was an era where I was like, well, I guess I'm old and Halloween is dead.
Yeah. I do remember the first year that I handed out the candy.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was, but it was like, this is a shift.
Yeah.
Definite shift.
It was a
I
weird.
hated that.
Became a man.
I don't like handing out candy. Kills
Maybe
my
that's what
soul.
happens. Maybe we all got old and we were like, if we can't have it anymore, no one can. Maybe it's our fault.
That could
Probably.
be it. I only have one good story of handing out candy. I was in middle school. My friend didn't have Halloween plans, so she asked if I would just stay in with her, and I was like, yeah, okay. And like, we didn't get any visitors because our front door was in our backyard.
What?
It's
Oh
we
yeah,
had-
no, it was.
My dad's house. There's like the front of the house, and then to the left of the garages, there's like a gate where like the door should be. Then you go through the gate into the backyard, take a left, and there's our front door.
Kind of brilliant, actually. You keep a lot of people away from your door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we didn't get a lot, but we got one guy who was like 30 and we were like 11. And he showed up and it was a man with like a full beard alone in a ballerina costume at like 30. And he was like, trick or treat. And we like look up at this ginormous man, and he seemed awkward about it and we were awkward about it. And so we're all just kind of like looking at each
There
other.
wasn't like a kid behind him that he
No,
was like
he was
doing it
completely
for.
alone. 28-year-old dude in a ballerina costume with like a full beard and a little thing, and we're like, and then he left. I think we made him awkward. I think we made him feel bad, but then he came back because he didn't get the candy.
Oh,
It's too awkward. So we gave him the candy, and then we laughed about it all night because it was just the funniest thing we'd ever seen. That's the only good handing out story I had, other than Door Monster, which technically is handing out.
Yeah,
candy,
no, I
but-
mean that turned handing out candy into a whole sport all
Well, it's
by
like
itself.
a party on the inside too. We're all having a good time on the
Yeah.
other side of the hand.
We were having a blast inside the door, and then we usually took like bets on like we would try to count how many of each thing. We try to predict what we were gonna see that year costume wise,
Oh,
and
yeah.
see
That's
like
always fun.
how many were gonna show up, especially as like like internet trends and Netflix stuff started picking up. There were definitely a few years where the fun part was like trying to guess like
Yeah.
which random internet meme was gonna get
No.
turned into
How many
a costume.
Harambe's are we going to see this
Right.
year?
No,
For a while, it was just like like those cardboard cutout Minecraft heads were real big for like a year.
Yeah. No, I think the best thing was just the moms, just the pure exhaustion of a mother with like 3 kids, and just like randomly she'd just be like, James, stop it. And James is just sitting there like looking at the door monster, like sweating at the eyeball over and over again. She's like, I will take you home right now. And he's like, no. And then he cries, and every mom is just like, just the mom energy on Halloween was truly top tier every time we did a door monster.
Yeah.
It was so good.
It honestly extended Halloween like enjoyment. Honestly, probably a lot longer than it would have otherwise. So
Yeah.
I will remember it fondly for
Rip Halloween.
forever. Matt, we got 20 seconds in the podcast. Take us out.
Halloween is dead. Our dreams are dead. Our childhoods are dead.
Damn it.
Why did
You're
you let
supposed to
Matt
do
do
something
this?
funny.